Testing.
No, you're fine. Yeah. Good evening. Today is Monday, February 5th, 2024, and we'll call the meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. We will proceed with school committee member introductions, and we'll start with Councilor Harriman.
Scott Harriman, City Council Representative to the school committee.
Donna Gallant, Ward 7.
Megan Hurd, Ward 6.
Ashley Medina, Ward 5.
Craig Charpentier, Ward 4.
Elizabeth Eames, Ward 3.
Janet Bowden, Ward 2.
Phoenix McLaughlin, Ward 1.
Megan Parks, at large.
Jake Lang, the superintendent.
Karen Paquette, Assistant Superintendent.
Abby Martell, Student Representative. Kaya Poulin, Student Representative.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like set aside? Seeing none, the consent agenda is adopted. Agenda item number 4 is public input. Members of the public may address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on non-agenda items now and on agenda items later. Comments that pertain to staff, personnel matters, or a student issue should be directed to the superintendent or the appropriate staff member of Lewiston Public Schools. Public comments shall be directed to the school committee and be brief, not repetitive, and related to the matter at hand. Before starting, please state your name, address, and affiliation to Lewiston Public Schools. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on non-agenda items?
My name is Marissa Deku. I am the LEA co-treasurer. I am the high school librarian, and I am a resident. So I'd like to bring to your attention an issue that has arisen this school year. Last year, a position was cut within the library, meaning that we're down to 2 staff members, which day to day is manageable, but it's not great. We serve the students. This is except for the fact that the ed tech within the library is being pulled regularly. When this happens, there's a ripple effect that I can't fully sum up in 3 minutes. But as the largest high school in the state of Maine, I find it really disgraceful that we have to close the library on multiple occasions during the week due to staffing issues, when one of our district's focus is building literacy. The library is the hub of the school for both staff and students. We are a resource of more than just books. We teach lessons of digital citizenship, information literacy, reader advisory. We give general technology help, handle interlibrary loans, manage the collection, process, cover, and handle a budget and paperwork. It's the only place that students can print in the building and be able to access those resources for class. It's also a place that students can find a quiet spot from the very large study halls and to work in small groups. It's being used for Bates tutors, and now due to lack of other spaces being used for small meetings. We multitask from the start of the day until the end of the day with interactions always being different. And I love that part of my job. And I can say that I actually live for that part of my job. It's an adventure. However, there's one thing I cannot do. I cannot teach a class while running a library safely and securely when my ed tech is pulled. So the library has been forced to close over 20 occasions within the 85 school days. Some closures have been all day, some have been for part of the day. This is inconsistent for our students and our staff to know when they can access the resources. This also means that there are no passes for students and we're turning them down, and it's heartbreaking. The library, when I was a student here, was my home, and it's a home for many of our students. I have taught 118 classes this year so far, compared to roughly 60 all year last year. We're extremely busy and a utilized source. This space is crucial, but also we're asked to give up our time, personnel, and space, and it concerns me. For example, last week I was teaching a class when another staff member unlocked the door to allow people into the space. They left the door unlocked, which I was unaware of. If the library ed tech had been here, that would never have happened. And as a safety issue, I see that with 4 hallway exterior doors. I ask that you find a way to reinstate our building subs. This is essential when we have 30+ staff members out on a day, because it affects not only my ability to serve LHS, it's the safety of the space and the opportunity to foster a love for reading. I'd be happy to talk more on this issue of the logistics of the space, but it has been extremely hard this year on staffing and scheduling. And I just ask that you support bringing back building subs. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak?
Hi, my name's Heather Creighton. I have a kindergartner at Montello Elementary School. I'm here to address you today about the amount of phone calls we've been getting from the Lewiston Automated School System. During the week of January 29th to February 2nd, I received 137 calls from the Lewiston Public Schools automated line. The highest tally was on January 29th, where I received a total of 41 calls before 7:30 a.m. Averaging out to 28 calls a day from the hours of 4:30 a.m. to 8 a.m., these calls were generally to tell me that a bus that my child does not take to a school that my child does not go to is running late or not running at all. While I understand this is important information, my child takes private transportation to school. I have received calls to tell me that it is snowing outside at 4 in the morning. I have received calls during meetings at work to tell me that it is snowing, but school will not be closing. I have sat through a job interview with my phone buzzing away in my pocket, calling me 10 times to tell me that some kids in high school were caught smoking pot. My child was in preschool at the time, miles away and not at all involved in the situation. Today, I'm asking someone to do something about this. As someone who has worked in phones most of my adult life, I refuse to believe that it is beyond your control to program the transportation updates into an opt-in system or an opt-out system. Or better yet, program the system so that it only calls twice before giving up. Either way, I believe that we can all agree that the level of calling is beyond excessive. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak? Seeing none, we will move on. Agenda item number 5 is a report from our student reps.
Start with a bit of an introduction too. So as a reminder to those who are not aware, the committee knows that there's an advisory group that has begun at the high school that has both Technical Center and Lewiston High School students. They're meeting with Karen and I to talk about just whatever's on their mind and things that are coming up on agendas or things that we hear people talking about. So we've now met on a couple of occasions, and the goal is to have a rotation of students who are interested in coming to meetings. We had 3 express interest tonight. One wasn't able to make it. So we have Kaya and Abby to join us tonight. This is a quick intro. Maybe you want to share a little bit about what grade you're in and a little something about you.
So I'm currently a freshman, and so is Kaya. Something about you, Abby? I don't know. I'm a 3-sport athlete. Yeah, that's excessive. Okay, I'm Kaya. I'm also a freshman, and I enjoy cooking and baking a lot.
Is there anything specific that interested you in being on the school committee?
I really want to advocate for my peers, and if I can help
like benefit our school in any way, then that's like one of my goals to do.
I want to make sure that rulings that happen on our school space is helped decided by people who are actually in that space.
Wonderful, thank you. Member Bowden?
Thank you. Hi, girls. I'm so glad you're here. It's so good to see some students showing up and being in the process. Is there anything at all? I know I don't mean to put you on the spot, but this is your time as student reps to talk to us about any issues that you're facing at the high school, or anything that you want to see changed, or anything good that's happened that you want to report to us.
The only good thing I can think of right now is how awesome it is that so much of Lewiston things have won this year. So cheer, the fact that our Class A cheer won is cool.
Anyone else have any questions for them? Member Eames?
Just a general question about what motivated you you said you wanted to represent the other students in this space. So is there something in particular that made you want to be the one to be in this room? Something you care about, or you've heard people particularly griping about or celebrating? Because something made you want to step forward and be in this room.
I know like me personally, I have like a lot of connections with my peers. Like I have a lot of relationships with everyone. So like I hear their complaints and like I reason with them. And I'm also like part of like my class board, whatever it's called. So I like also hear those complaints as well. So if I can like advocate to as many people as possible, then like that's my goal. Because if enough students want something changed, and if I know that I can speak for it, then I would want to, and hopefully I can help them like enjoy being at school more.
Well, I'm glad you are listening rather than just presuming everyone agrees with you. So that's good.
They are prepared to speak to the all school flex agenda item. That was our topic of a couple of meetings the last month or so. So they are prepared to speak to that. And I did share with them that when agenda items come up, that they were welcome to speak. So I just wanted you to know that they were prepared for that as well.
And we want to hear the good and the bad, definitely. We don't want just good stuff. We want to hear what's really going on. Member Medina?
I just want to say welcome and thank you so much for being here. It's really, really important that we hear from students directly. You know, you guys are there, like you said, you're there, you know what's going on. So just thank you for taking the time to do that, because I'm sure you have busy schedule from the sound of it.
Member Bowden?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask one more question. Since we have students in front of us, we haven't seen students at all this year. One of the things that came up last year at the beginning of this year were some issues surrounding the bathrooms at the high school. And I was just wondering if either one of you wanted to speak on that and what you're seeing this year. Like, I know you're freshmen, so you don't know what happened last year, but do you find the bathrooms easily accessible to you this year? I guess that's my question.
Sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. It really just like depends on where I am in the building, because sometimes from like upstairs I have to walk all the way from the C wing over to the D wing, and if I'm on a 5-minute limit and the bathrooms are always like filled, then I'm gonna like go over that limit and then I'm gonna be losing out on class time. So the bathrooms are always locked. So I feel like that should like have like I don't know, just like, be more accessible. Like I understand why they're locked, but I feel like having to go all the way to D wing just for a bathroom is like a little outrageous.
Yeah, the bathrooms near us specifically are farther away. So it takes us like 1.5 to 2 minutes just to get there. And then we have to come back. And then since only one person in a class can go at a time, that makes it so that kids normally can get like in trouble for that. But since the bathrooms right next to us are locked, there's no way for us to go there within 5 minutes.
And a majority of the bathroom is also single stall. And there's a lot of kids in the building. So like that can like take time, like just waiting to have a bathroom open and available to you.
Thank you.
Member Donna? I'm blanking the land. I just blanked on your last name.
Maybe someone could explain, I mean, maybe ladies know the reason why bathrooms are locked.
From what I've heard, I think it's because staff obviously want bathrooms that they can have that aren't, like, kids aren't always the cleanest with bathroom spaces, and staff want spaces where they can go that's not covered in toilet paper with urine everywhere, because the teachers aren't obviously the ones doing that, so they don't want to have to be in spaces with that stuff everywhere.
My assumption on like why they'd be locked is because fights could happen as well as a lot of smoking and other activities happening in the bathroom. That's just irresponsible and shouldn't be happening at school. So I think that's why like most of the like multiple stall bathrooms are currently locked.
Any other questions for our students? Thank you for being here. We look forward to hearing more from you tonight. Agenda item number 6 is to recognize Lewiston Public Schools staff.
So tonight we want to take some time to recognize some folks that are helping with our Century 21 after school program. Sorry, 21st century, do that all the time. Gretchen, if you wouldn't mind, and I work for State Farm, so it's Super Bowl week, pardon me. Gretchen, I wanted to welcome you up. Gretchen is our coordinator director who helps plan and implement so many things at so many schools and involve enrichment activities, academic supports as it relates to the programming. We have lots of staff doing a really amazing job engaging with our kids and carrying out programming in a true nurturing way it's really making an impact. So turn it over to you.
First, I wanted to thank you guys for allowing us to be here this evening and allowing me to celebrate some of my team with you. I have many amazing staff members that work for 21st Century throughout all of our schools, but the team at LMS continually go above and beyond. This team is running a robust, engaging after-school 21st Century program. The program is currently serving about 60 students, and the staff's dedication to creating hands-on lessons that deeply engage the students is truly impressive. The consistency of the high attendance speaks volumes about the welcoming and enjoyable learning environment fostered for these LMS students. Some of the activities that they have are sewing and quilting classes, art classes, flower arranging, pot planting, planting potting lessons. That didn't come out right. But good, give you guys a good laugh. Lessons on caring for plants in our hydroponics units, which we have put into 6 of our schools this year. Kids learning how to check the pH levels in the water in all of our units. Tie-dyeing lessons, woodworking, wood burning lessons, epoxy and resin projects, soap making, and cooking classes. This school has really become one of our model 21st century programs where I've taken new site coordinators to help train them and show them what we want our students to be doing after school and having these engaging hands-on lessons. One upcoming exciting projects that they are currently working on is planning a farmer's market to showcase all of their handmade projects, as well as the food that they've been growing in their hydroponics unit. The dedication, energy, and love invested by this team into the 21st Century program is invaluable. Their commitment ensures a safe and engaging after-school haven for our students, and we couldn't be more grateful for them. I would like to call them up and recognize the ladies here. My site coordinator at LMS is Dina Doyon, and we could not do this program without her. We also have Desiree Spalding here with us tonight, Allison Brooks, Ann Lasher, Brooke Chesson, and Sharon Hathaway. Thank you guys so much for having us tonight.
Thank you all. Agenda item number 7 is to receive and potentially vote on the AVAC Contemporary Issues Field Trip Request to Camden Rockland, Maine.
Hello, I'm Keith Levesque, LHS Social Studies teacher and advisor to the Gifted and Talented program, AVAC Contemporary Affairs. So I'm looking to take students to the Camden conference, the first weekend of February break. So we leave on Friday, the 16th. Looking at leaving like after lunch, so that we can get there in time to kind of check into the hotel. And then that night, we get together at a local school with other high school programs from around the state. And we'll watch the keynote speaker, who is Nirupama Rao, who was a former foreign secretary and ambassador to the United States, China, and Sri Lanka from India. So the topic of the year is India, and we always match up our kind of yearly Gifted and Talented program topic with the one that Camden Conference is doing, so that we can provide students the opportunity to attend the conference. And this year, actually, the main conference takes place at Camden Opera House. And we typically are at like a satellite location where they stream it live, and students can still ask questions of the speakers throughout the weekend. But this year, there's some chance for our students to actually attend at the Camden Opera House location. I guess there's a bunch of University of Maine students that were supposed to go, and they're not going to go now. So that opens up space for us. So that's kind of cool. But otherwise, the weekend is full of experts in their field, talking about, the topic of the year, which is India, which is now the most populated country on the planet and the second largest economy. So the program, is really geared toward hearing these speakers, and then it gives students and other attendees an opportunity to ask questions. So they engage the audience a lot more than many other conferences I've been to. So it's a really great opportunity. I'm hoping to bring 5 or 6 students to attend for the weekend.
Any questions or comments by committee members? Member Bowden?
No, I was just going to make a motion if no one had any comments, but you can go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've attended in the past that very conference, and it is a wonderful location, and the way it's formatted, the students will benefit a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the field trip to Camden Rockland for the AVAC Contemporary Issues.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item number 8 is to receive and potentially vote on the LRTC field trip request to the Skills USA conference at Cross Insurance Arena in Bangor.
We have Director Callahan and Instructor Paul Kennedy, who's also an advisor, coming up to the podium.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Rob Callahan. I'm the Director at Lewiston Regional Technical Center, and I'm pleased to be here with my good colleague, Paul Kennedy, who is also, and among the other things that he does at LRTC, he is our plumbing instructor, and he is also one of our lead Skills USA advisors. As many of you know, Skills USA is the largest career and technical student organization in the United States. It incorporates several 100,000 students in career and leadership areas that have both technical components as well as leadership in career building as well. We recently held our local skills competition at LRTC. We had dozens of competitions that involved every student in the building. And we are thrilled with the energy and the commitment they made to the work they did. From there, we had folks that came in various places, first, second, and third, that we recognized. And those first place winners will be invited to go to Bangor, Maine, to compete against the 27 other tech centers in the state of Maine. So I'm going to let Mr. Kennedy tell you a little bit about that, but we're very proud of the work that students do. And I also just wanted to take a quick second to recognize the outstanding work that Paul does with his colleagues, Jess Dewin, our multimedia teacher, and Jason Merritt, who's our carpentry instructor. It is dozens and dozens of hours from this point going forward, in addition to work that they'll do in Bangor. And then If you're lucky enough, like Paul, we send him to Atlanta, Georgia for the national competitions in June. He had a student take fourth in the country last year for plumbing. We had a student from electrical that was third in the country. So very proud of that, but it is a tremendous amount of work on their part.
Good evening. We will take 97 students up to Bangor on March 14th, 15th to compete, as Rob said, in a number of competitions, from hands-on skilled competitions such as welding, plumbing, electrical, carpentry, to advertising, design, extemporaneous speech, job demo, interview, welding, sculpture, photography, and on and on. So the students have really enjoyed learning their skills at LRTC, and this is an opportunity for them to demonstrate their skills that they've learned throughout the course of the year so far. We have 10 chaperones that'll go up with us, and each of the chaperones will be responsible for 10 students as well. It's a great opportunity. As Rob likes to say, he wants the kids to take a moderate risk each and every year. And we feel that Skills USA is a good moderate risk for the students to take. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Member Bowden?
Most of you probably know this, but my daughter competed last year. She won states and went on to nationals. And I can't stress enough what a great program this is and how organized and how well run it is. It's safe. And it's just so incredible. So I can't say yes enough to this field trip request. So if no one else has anything to say, then I'll make a motion but go ahead, Meg, sorry. I'll wait on my motion.
It doesn't say where you guys are staying, like 100 students, that's a lot. I'm sure there's other students coming in and there's not a lot of lodging up there.
We stay at the Country Inn, which is the same hotel we've stayed at since I've been here 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
And there are a couple of schools that stay there as well. We usually have one wing, and
Okay.
they keep the general public away.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm fine. I again can attest. My plumber is actually from the LRTC program, and I am not going to name his name because I don't want anybody to steal him from me. So, but I will second your motion.
Any further comments or questions? All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you.
We're going to switch the next two items just so that students don't have to sit here too long. So agenda item 10 out of order is to request and potentially vote on the mock trial funding for nationals.
So we're jumping ahead a bit. Advisor Michelle Crowley's here, but also some students. And this is something that we had discussed prior when they won states, and we recognized them for their great work there. That part of the conversation of they were going to do what they could to try to raise some money in the short term. And I know Michelle looked at some different travel options because it's at a different location, which she'll share. But we wanted to get this back in front of you so they can start their planning if the school committee is amenable to try to help finance this trip. So go for it.
We'd like to start with introductions. I'm Ethan Rinko. I'm a senior, and this is my 3rd year on the mock trial team.
My name's Olivia Crowley. I'm a senior, and this is also my 3rd year on the mock trial team.
I'm Gabby. I'm a senior, and this is also my 3rd year on the mock trial team.
So we'd like to first start about talking about the funding we have so far. So far, we've raised approximately $8,000 with a combination of efforts and variety of sources.
Mr. Dion reached out to all the members of Androscoggin Bar Association, and through that effort, the team has received a significant amount of contributions from area law firms.
The team has also solicited direct donations from area businesses, family members, teachers, and just others in the community. The team has received donations that will be attributed to the community reach from the Sun Journal article that was posted about us after we won.
And it's this article. If you've all seen it, it says Lewiston's mock trial team is the real deal. And it was a really good article by Mark Laflamme. And yes, I want to thank my dad, who's one of our lawyer coaches, for doing a lot of the heavy lifting with fundraising, but the students also have done a lot. They haven't gotten like
the $2,500 donation we got from Berman Simmons, which was significant, as well as many other large donations. But they've done a lot of work with reaching out, and, you know, family and friends also are supportive. So it's an expensive trip. This will be our third time going to nationals. And this year is the most cost efficient, I think, because we are going to be able to drive. The total estimate with just what we need in order to get there, to stay there, to feed everybody, to register everybody. And we participate in a really fun activity. I bet these kids would tell you it's great. And I showed you pictures and video of it last time, the pin exchange, where they get to meet kids from all over. So we have an expense associated with that as well. It'll be about $15,000 total. So with $8,000 raised, we are asking for a little buffer as well from the school board. We're asking for $8,000 if possible. That's what we received last year. And I guess it was 6 years ago when we went to nationals in Georgia. And I think also I've put in for a field trip request. I don't think that paperwork has all gone through. So I guess I'll be back for that. And yeah, and I can answer any questions you might have with details on the breakdown of costs or anything else you might need to know.
So just to add as a note, Michelle has been upfront about, you know, the work they were able to do. And I have the sense that the committee's willing to support. This is an unbudgeted item. I do think we can find the funds, given that we have some open positions. And so my recommendation would be to support this. And the students have done a great amount of work, not just this year, but leading up to, for them as a capstone is something they're leaving behind for the juniors and sophomores also involved. So, and Mr. Dowden, while you're up here, thank you so much for all your help with the group. He's there every time they go and compete. So,
Any questions or comments by committee members? Member Bowden?
I'll talk again. No, so I just, you know, I have a hard time saying no to any students who have competed and won. And I mean, this is such a great opportunity. I'm thrilled to support this again this year. And I hope you guys go all the way this time.
Thank you.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Member Eames?
Yeah, congratulations. And my son is jealous because they didn't win this year, but it's a wonderful activity. Very, very, anyway, I'm very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Member Medina?
Congratulations, and I just want to second the motion, please.
Has there been a motion made? There hasn't been a motion yet.
Oh, well, then I'd like to make a motion. The 8,000, right?
Yeah,
I'll second it then.
perfect. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll be back.
well, while we have Michelle here, maybe save her another evening out, would the committee be willing to entertain approval of the permission slip that's just in the logistics process right now, but certainly will be taken care of with proper supervision?
I'd like to make a motion to approve their field trip.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That is also unanimous.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Agenda item number, backtracking to 9, to receive the whole school flex update from Principal Radke.
Good evening. Some of you are new. I'm John Radke. I'm the principal over here at the high school. I am halfway through my second year in this position, just to give you a little context. I emailed the superintendent there we go. So at the end of last year and over the summer, we rearranged some things at the high school in order to address a number of issues. And what we did was, how many of you are familiar with the term DA? Okay, for those of you who are not, that's an advisory period. Devil's advocate. It's an advisory period that's existed from time immemorial at the high school, and it's moved to different slots. 2 years ago, it met 3 times a week. Last year, it met twice a week after lunch. So what we did this year is we said it was going to meet twice a week, first thing in the morning for 35 minutes, and that the other 3 days were going to be what's known as all school flex / activity. What all school flex means, and those of you who've had students at the high school are familiar with 9th grade flex. During all school flex, all teachers and all students are available to meet with each other. All right, you would go to your advisor, you would tell your advisor, I need to go talk to my algebra teacher, and then you would go and meet with your algebra teacher. Or perhaps your Spanish teacher told you yesterday, it might be a good idea for you to come tomorrow morning to finish up that quiz that you need to do in their class. So that's sort of it's an extra help period built in every morning of the school year, except for the days when you have something to do in your advisory period, a programmatic thing. So 3 days a week, an opportunity to go see some teachers. Now, there is a cost to it. That's the schedule, by the way, on the right. So you would get some sense of what a school day would look like. We have block periods. So that's why you see 1/5 right over there. So you would have a chance to go see. So 3 blocks are academic time. So everything comes at a cost. And the cost on this was about 5.95 fewer hours per class per year than last year. Over the course of the year, you would lose or let's call it 6, round up to 6 hours worth of whatever the content area. What you've gotten instead is additional time, additional 3 blocks of unstructured academic time to go meet with teachers and to get extra help. Now, a couple of reasons behind why we felt that cost was worthwhile. Number one, we have spent a great deal of time the past few years on these things called Ice Week and Mud Week, which are opportunities for students to remediate during February vacation and April vacation if they hadn't done so before, if they had failed a course or they were behind. Those are no longer there. The goal is you remediate much more closely to when you actually took the exam or the test or the project, all right, rather than putting it off. And then hopefully you don't have to end up in summer school, which is a whole other thing, where students are attempting to earn back credit. So it's an opportunity to earn back, to work more closely with staff members. There is also a activity period, which is on the last day of the week, Friday. If a teacher wishes to offer an activity like chess club or, improv club or whatever it might be, that might be a chance to do that as well. So an opportunity for a little extra enrichment for those. And that really allows many of our students get off the bus at 7:30 and get on the bus at 2. And from an equity perspective, back in the day, it used to be, well, just come after school and I'll help you with your homework. Okay, well, if you have to catch that bus at 2:05, that's not an option for you. Come early. First of all, it can be a challenge to get teenagers out of bed early, but also if they're stuck to that bus schedule, that's not something they can do. Additionally, you're then asking staff to work more likely outside of contract hours. So this is a way to build it right into the day. Next slide, please. And there is all that I said, right? It's also got some opportunity to strengthen peer-to-peer relationships, student-to-staff relationships, as well as, just build a sense of community within that advisory group. So for social emotional learning. Next one, please. So we did a quick survey back in December to see how it was going. And I'm going to go through a fair amount of data. Jake can share all of these slides with you if you want to look at them in detail. I don't want to spend too much time, looking at each one. But this first slide on the left is how many times does a student come to meet you on their own? And blue is 0, and the purple is 10 plus times. Red is 1 to 3, yellow is 4 to 6. You can read it for yourself down there. So there is a fair amount of traffic, with only 10% of teachers reporting that students have never come to meet with them during this block. On the other side, we asked a different question, which is, how many times have you asked a student to come meet with you? And so again, blue is never asked, 7.8%. And as you'll see, it goes up to 10 plus times, obviously 42%, the numbers go up the more you ask students to come in and get a little extra help, the better off you are. Yes, ma'am.
Clarifying question. Is this how many times they've asked a student just in general, or have asked a student and the student showed up?
That's a great question, and I cannot tease that out of this data
Okay.
for you.
All right, thank you.
I think my hunch would be that they've asked a student and the student showed up. Because the correlation here I think we're seeing is the teachers who are inviting students to come get extra help have more students coming to get extra help. Next slide. Keep going. I meant to put this one at the end in case anybody had extra questions. So ask the same questions to students, right? Have you ever chosen to go to a teacher for all school flex? And overwhelmingly, we have students say yes. The red is the yellow is the ones that have said no. The red is the one that says yes, 1 or 2 times they've gone. And the blue are 3 or more times. So you're looking at 75% roughly of students saying that they have chosen to use that period to go talk to a teacher for extra help. And then down at the bottom there, how many times have you been asked? Has a teacher asked you to come? And again, we're seeing that actually students are doing it on their own. 54% of the students reported that they had not been asked. That was just something that they had done on their own, which is good for a number of reasons. Next slide. How often have you seen student use time to catch up due to absences? Just a quick look at this. Again, blue is 0, purple is 10 plus times. So, if you look at that middle group, 29.7, 35.8, those are the students who are doing it 1 to 6 times that they've been observed doing that. Next slide, please. How often have students come to your space for extra time on an assessment, right? So student doesn't quite finish it up, or perhaps a 504 plan requires them to have additional time on an assessment. So again, blue is 0. But again, I like to look at the yellow, green, and purple, and that's the majority of students have come to your space. Excuse me. Staff are reporting that students are coming to their space fairly often to do extra time on an assessment. Next slide, please. All right. Now, this may in fact be the hidden root cause of why students like to go to other people's DAs. It wouldn't exclusively be the algebra teacher, but they come to the space for social or relationship reasons, either with the teacher, just to chat, catch up, and or with peers who might be in that space. Again, people say, well, about 75% think that they've seen that anywhere from 1 to 10 times. Next slide, please. How often do they use it for extra help, right? And that's the vast majority of the time. If you look at this pie, the blue is the 0% of it. Staff report seeing students use academic flex time, all school flex time, to do the purpose for which it was designed. Next one, please. Come to your space for any other academic reason. This is just a lunch bucket item throw. They're either helping with homework that's not related to that class. They're trying to get started on a project. And so, we're seeing that roughly 66% of the time, there is an academic reason for why a student, whether you go to your algebra teacher's classroom to work on algebra, or whether it's to work with a colleague on a history report, you're doing something academic. Next one, please. What percent of your DA students, generally that's your advisees, use the time for academics? So this is, I would have 12 students assigned to me as my advisees, and I'm just watching them. And so we're asking the advisors what percentage of that time. And people are saying roughly, well, 50% of them use it about a third of the time. That's the thumbnail sketch. So that's, probably pretty predictable in high school. What's interesting is we didn't have a chance to resurvey. I would have been very interested in how this number may or may not have changed in the run-up to, we call them semester summative activities. In other places, they call them midterms. There seemed to be a greater sense of focus as we came up to those right after the holiday break. Next one, please. Have you used All School Flex to make up work after an absence, right? You know, everybody could get sick once in a while or can't be there. And the answer is the vast majority are saying yes, that 59% of the time, that's what they're you know, that's where they go make up their work is for 59% of the students who miss and need to make up work. That's when they're doing it. Next one, please. Have you ever used this time to do homework that maybe you didn't quite get done at home, right? All good. And the answer is, of course, right? Roughly 68, 69% say, oh yeah, I've used it once or twice, perhaps, to get my homework done. Next one, please. Get extra help. Again, we're talking student reported use, and we're, you know, what we're hearing is that 59% are saying yes, they've used it to get extra help, with 40% reporting that they haven't back in December. Again, be interesting to see how that number may or may not change over time. Next one, please. Have you participated in activities on Fridays? Remember I said that last day of the week, there were a number of activities offered. And the answer is most people, no, 56%. I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing. They may be choosing instead to be doing homework or be getting extra help from a teacher, but they are not necessarily engaged in chess club or theater, improv, or extra music sessions or whatever might happen to be going on. Next one, please. I should have blown that one up. Oh, thank you. Overall, do you see more academic help being sought during All School Flex or after school? Asked of the staff, and they would say during All School Flex is the #1 time when students are coming for academic help, with 10% coming in, you know, at the end of the day. Next one, please. Overall, are more students seeking extra academic help this year compared to last year? Again, these are all, I mean, these are all teacher impression, you know, their sense of how it's going. And what they have said, again, that, you know, slightly over 50% are saying, yeah, more this year. You know, and then, or excuse me, right, 46% are saying more this year. Only 7% are saying more last year. 32% can't make the call. And then 12%, this is their first year, they have no basis for judgment. Next one, please. Does the ASF and activity time help you manage your workload better? Asked of staff. Yes, 43.8%. No, there is no impact, 31.3%. 15% said it makes it worse, and 9% said, this is my first year, I couldn't tell you. Next one, please. Does the ASF and activity time help you build stronger relationships with students? And this was overwhelmingly yes, on the part of all staff who answered this survey, which is roughly about 40% of the staff in the sample size. There's somebody said it made it worse. And then the others were, you know, no impact, or this is my first year here, I couldn't tell you. And then the next slide talks about, has the intervention block allowed for a more timely remediation than ice week or mud week? Those were the 2 weeks, February vacation, April vacation, when kids could go in and make stuff up. And again, almost 70% said yes. Students are able to remediate much closer and in real time than they were before. Next one, please. And this is just purely some comments that we cherry picked. You know, why do students, what is the benefits do you see to All School Flex? And the answer to that, you can read them for yourself. The other interesting fact, we run a eligibility check at the end of each marking period, whether students are able to continue to participate in co-curricular activities. And when we ran the eligibility, Athletic Director Fuller was excited now about eligibility checks, which you never get out of an athletic director. Of the 250 plus athletes who are participating in winter activities and winter sports, only 6 lost eligibility, and he can't ever remember it being that low. So I didn't have a chance to do a longitudinal study, didn't get a chance to look back at all of them, but Jason's been here quite some time, and the fact that he was impressed with how many students were maintaining their eligibility. Directly correlated to this, not sure. I don't think it hurts. Couple more. That's a summary. Again, we'll share these out. I don't want to read a slide to you. You're all capable of reading. Next slide. The other thing we did with all school flex was introduce the concept of 11th and 12th grade privileges, which is to say, if you are meeting the eligibility requirements of the school in both grades and attendance, you don't have to be there. You can sleep in, not worry about your place in the line at Aroma Joe's, any of that. You can get to school a little bit late. And what you see here is that we started off the year with most juniors and seniors eligible, and that's gone down pretty steadily. And what's on that table on the right says whether it's for GPA, whether it was for attendance, but every time we checked, there's an adjustment. And we're beginning to see it's leveling off slightly over 200 students on the last check on the 23rd of January. And what you find is they're really scrambling to get, if they've had them, they want them back. So that's actually been a bit of an incentive. And then of those who had them, when you had them, how often did you use your privileges during all school flex and activity? Again, that's pretty small, but it's 24% always. Usually is another 24%. And then sometimes they're 18% and then rarely or never. So they just keep coming anyways, the 35%. So that's a little information that goes along with that. So let's get to the last couple of slides and then I'm happy to take questions. So the goal, obviously, whenever you make a change like this, it'd be great if you had the silver bullet and all of a sudden, ta-da, people started passing at unheard of numbers. I'm here to tell you, we're not there yet with this adjustment. But there is some interesting things to note. This is all students in these two charts. The first is last year at the semester, how many students, how many failures were there? So it's more than just students, it's all courses as well. So how many students how many courses awarded A's, how many B's, C's, D's? And if you look at that aggregate data, it's relatively unchanged. So while it has not done it hasn't been the magic bullet yet, it also has done no harm. It's not like there are suddenly more students failing, due to the lack of an extra 5.95 hours of instructional time in the year, although we're at 3 hours so far. Take a next slide, because this is where it gets interesting for me. And this is the 9th grade distribution. And while there isn't a market increase in students, in overall students passing, what you see is more students are getting A's, more students are getting B's, right? And slightly more students are getting C's. So we're having an impact of pulling the students who are doing school seem to be doing better in school right now, which is a handy observation and something that we're tracking very carefully. So there's, it's just an interesting piece of data that you can see in this graphic. And then I just threw this in because I think it's an amazing testament to how hard everybody's working at the high school. Disciplinary incidents last year versus this year. Trend line in red, actual in blue, but down dramatically. And I really have to hand credit to students who are taking school seriously. I have to give credit out to staff who are out and about in the halls, talking to kids, relating to kids. making connections so that things don't escalate. The year before I came, we had students invading classrooms. We had staff members in fear that they were going to get beat up in the school. Those conversations are over. The administrative team has done an amazing job of being on top of things. Our restorative justice team it has been phenomenal. What they report is people are coming to them with conflicts before they get to the point of running into discipline. And then, quite frankly, I have to say thank you to all of you who have held a very clear bottom line on behavior that can and cannot be tolerated in the Lewiston Public Schools. So I think, you know, we're in the process of shifting a culture in that building. I think this is a cornerstone, people feeling safe. I think steps like adding an AFT and opportunities for students and teachers to work together helps build a culture within the building of continuous improvement. So I will stop there. I've got more slides, which you will have access to. I don't need to read them to you, but if you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them and may refer to these as well.
Okay. Do we want to start with the students or the committee? Students. Okay, you're on. You're not ready yet?
So I'll try to tee it up a little bit. So we did talk in our last meeting about some of the thoughts, and the whole group actually shared around this academic focus time or the school-wide time. So feel free to not only share your own thoughts, but anything that was mentioned in the meeting with the other students about benefits, pros, cons, you name it. Open mic.
For me, Flex has benefited my time. Obviously, this is my first year, so I can't speak to what happened the year before and if there's like a market change because I haven't been there to witness it. But Flex has been good for me and my friends. For one, on Fridays during the activity block, that's when class of 27 meets. So the president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and all of our helpers. That's when we meet. And now that we don't have to meet after school and we can meet within class time, that opens the door for people to, among the spectrum of people to join us for our meetings, because a lot of people can't always afford transportation. So they rely on buses. So now our election, now we have people that represent all wards of Lewiston, and it's made it way easier to access for poor students in our community.
I personally think that the morning all school flex is helpful because, like I said, I'm a 3-sport athlete, so I don't always have the time to stay after school and catch up on my work. And I also travel a lot, so when I'm gone, if I need to catch up, I can go see my teacher. Or if, for say, like a teacher has to like change grade levels for whatever reason, I can go to that classroom and like catch up with them, like fill them in, like if they need to help me, like they can. And I have friends in every single grade, so like I hear their opinions on it too, and if it's helping them or not. And I can also like increase my relationships with like people in other grades and meet new people. So I feel like the all school flex is really good for like community bonding as well as like improving your grades and things like that.
I know select teachers have issues with all school flex. As Principal Radke mentioned, there's less time. We lose out on some time in class. Some teachers feel like that we fall behind because we don't have as much time to go over certain topics before we need to, because there's certain standards that we need to get to for like the year. And some teachers feel that we don't have as much time as they would like to go over those topics, or that we fall behind. But I think that with all school flex, that does help us go in to understand the topics. I feel that if we took that away, then we would still be behind, but only because we're confused. And I feel as though longer classes would lose us after a while. The minute and 10 minutes already, like once it hits that 1 hour of class time, you're already kind of looking at the clock. And I feel like that extra time kids aren't gonna be there. Like you have a mental capacity, right? And there's only so much time that you can spend in a class before your brain starts kind of losing it, especially depending on like your schedule. Like 3 of my 4 core classes on one day, back to back to back. I don't think after geometry honors, English, just that back to back to back, I don't think I'd be able to have the brain capacity to hold it all. And obviously, there's parents on this committee. You guys all know that sickness runs rampant in the fall, early spring. Sometimes I feel like anytime we lose a sickness, kids are sick again. We're always coughing. So when we miss that 1 or 2 days, it's so hard to get that time back and catch up again. I know a few kids who will have fevers and they still come to school because missing out, especially if you have most of your core classes on one day, missing out on time is not something you can really afford. Morning flex normally helps with that. Without morning flex, it piles up. A lot of people don't just have a fever for one day. You have a fever for 1 or 2 days, and then you're still recovering. And without flex, I just don't really see how you can make that up as you get work every day and every day. It just piles. I do know there is an issue with kids who don't utilize that time and kids who skip and roam the halls instead. But I feel as though taking resources from kids who can't stay after school for whatever reason, whether if they rely on the bus because they don't have the money to afford staying after school, or if there's teachers who don't have the time I know some teachers who have doctor's appointments straight after school. They can't stay after school and help children. So I feel as though taking a resource away from kids who need it because of I don't remember a lot of that data, but for the kids who don't utilize it, I feel we'll be doing the majority a disservice.
I just think that if we take it away like altogether, that we're just gonna see like a major decrease in grades, like all around. Because I know that I see my peers utilizing their time for all school flex instead of DA. Because in my DA personally, all of us are just on our phones the whole time. Like we're not working on our schoolwork, which is partly our fault. But we can't go to the teachers that we need if we need help on a project or like a math assignment. We can't go to those teachers during DA time. So our flex time is like where like we can do that obviously. But I feel like also a lot of the reasoning like that we didn't see too much data on the Friday activity time is because most of us didn't know that it was a thing. Like I personally didn't know that it was a thing until like a couple weeks ago. But even then, like I didn't know that like it was an open option to like do chess club, like work on theater. I know that open gym's a thing too. So like those kids have that too. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. So I feel like a lot of kids just like don't know how open their resources are. And some teachers that you go to for all school flex like will complain about it right to your face that they don't like the all school flex and that they don't want you being in that room because it's taking away time from them and for them to like prepare throughout the day.
Yeah, some teachers are really open about like that one teacher who thinks that their relationship with students becomes worse. I'm not sure who that is, but I just don't. Like, I can't see how spending more time with your students is making your relationship worse. I feel like that's kind of sad, honestly. I know for me personally, I had a teacher in the first half of the year who's retiring after this year. I only had them for half of the year. I couldn't take the second part of their class because it interfered with a core class and I couldn't switch my schedule around. So that half of the year would be the only time I'd be able to see them because they have medical problems. They can't stay after school. So when I don't have any work, going up there to visit them and being able to talk for a bit has really like helped to nurture our relationship. And I know I will really miss that teacher. My DA personally is also retiring. So having more time in the morning to spend with them has been really nice.
I take it you're done.
Sorry. I'll add a couple of things. First off, thank you both so much. The voice that you're bringing is exactly what we've been looking for. That sense of routine, I think, is critically important. Whether you are with privilege because you've earned it, which is another thing I'm supportive of. Students who are doing the right things have a different flexible schedule. They can get themselves to school at a different time. There's also spots for them to be in school if that's the only way they can get to and from. But we have been hearing from Principal Radke and I and others from students who have earned the privilege, who are planning their Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning because they've got to go get the extra help from the person. These are kids that drive to school, juniors and seniors, a lot of them, who are more cognizant of their situation and that they are going on their own, not because someone told them to book a time or someone's asked them to be there, and they're going and taking care of what they need to take care of. And to me, that is that adult skill or that approaching adult skill that we want kids to develop, to know their situation and to go take care of it. To me, that's that independent piece of lifelong learning that is so critical. Also with the routine for students who maybe haven't earned that privilege yet, your day starts with, what do you have today? And in a space that you have a relationship with someone that you can confide in, a sense of belonging that in this world right now is something that we need. That's why kids go to school sometimes. This stuff chokes me up, but I really think that this is building a model of students having that person other than just their advisor, who they can build a relationship in what is a monster of a school. To have a person or people that you can go visit because they're retiring or that they have a medical thing from student to adult. I mean, that's why we do it. So I could go on and on like Principal Radke, but again, some real good perks to this. And again, it's work in other places and you lose some academic time. It's not without its costs, but I do think the benefits far outweigh the negatives. And last thing that I just looked at my note, the connection piece with the activities, while they're just learning about that possibility, it's something that they've been trying to build in. We have never been able to get kids to engage in an activity where they can find people that are like them in a school of 1,500 kids and a couple hundred staff between the tech center and the high school. You can get lost in that maze. But if you can land yourself in chess club with 8-10 other kids that also play chess, you have a new friend group. And if we don't facilitate it as adults as part of our routine, those kids just never cross paths. And so I think that that's a wonderful thing. And I know that you've talked about growing that, Principal Radke, but those clubs and activities for those who may not be on a sports team or some of the other co-curriculars is a real good opportunity to mesh with kids who have similar likes that you have.
Committee, Member Bowden.
Thank you. So first, before I start talking, Principal Radke, you gave a lot of credit to a lot of people, but I think you deserve some credit too, for being at the helm of this and, being the leader in our school. So thank you for what you're doing. I do have a question. I have some comments, but I also have a question. Have you noticed tardies going down this year? Is that data that you have? I'm just curious.
That would be the slide I didn't show you.
Okay.
Slide 27.
Okay.
And it's a little bit complicated to read because we shifted the timing for DA, so it's gonna look a little funny. If you go diagonally, the 23 to the 22, total late unexcused to DA. All right, if you go diagonally, those are comparable numbers. All right, because what you're looking at there is, DA is now the first period of the day, and it was after lunch last year. So what we're looking at is kids getting to school for the first period of the day, whether it's DA or whether it's a class. And so what you're seeing there is in 2023, we've actually brought down the number of kids who are late to that first block of the day by 98, averaging 98 a day. Last year, we had 7,418, or an average of 112 a day. So not a huge difference, but a difference. So kids are showing up for that DA where they weren't necessarily getting there on time for when the bell rang and you were doing your first class.
Yeah.
All right. And then if you look at so total late unexcused to period 1, period 5, now there's a dramatic difference here. So there have been 2,377 late slips written for the first block of the day this year. Period 1, academic block. Last year, it was 7,418. So while they may be coming a little late to flex or DA or whatever, they are making it to their first teacher-directed period every day in vastly larger numbers.
Yeah, and that's really important.
And then the breakdown there is like, here's the deal, right? You could probably expect it. 67 students have 30 plus, late unexcused so far this year. And so it's really a handful of kids who drive you bananas on this one. And it's less than 10% of the population. So I would posit that while it's inconvenient, it's not a crisis. Because the vast majority of students, very reasonable numbers of I'm late because the bus. You can't be late if the bus is late, but I'm late because for whatever reason. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the reason I was curious about that, obviously I'm a parent, I have a freshman and I have a senior. And I know my freshman takes advantage of flex, especially if she's out sick, like you ladies spoke to. It's a spot to go and, make up or get the paperwork at least that you need to do at home. But I also have a senior with senior privileges who a lot of mornings will take off without my freshman because she's not ready on time and she's not going to lose her senior privileges by showing up late. So I was curious about those numbers and if that got better with this. So I appreciate what you've done this year. I see my kids getting up on time and getting themselves to school on time because they want to, because they need to be there. And it's not a matter of, no big deal, I'm just going to get a late slip. Like that's not the attitude they have. So what you're doing is working in my household. So I appreciate it. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents there. So thank you.
Member Hurd?
Thank you. So I think this is great. I'm hoping that we can maybe get some more information out there about the clubs, because it sounds like you ladies had expressed that maybe it wasn't advertised or maybe students didn't know. And I think just to kind of piggyback off what Superintendent Langla said, it sets you up to become friends with people who you wouldn't normally be friends with. And I can relate to, as a adult, it's hard to make friends. Like when you're a grown up, it's hard to make friends. And I have a friend who our kids are best friends. And one day I said, well, our kids are best friends. So guess what? Now we're friends. And I kind of forced myself on her. And just in talking, come to find out she graduated from Lewiston High School and she was a valedictorian. And when my husband found out, he was like, how are you guys friends? And so an unlikely situation that probably we wouldn't have been friends, but because our kids are best friends, we are friends and we have a great friendship. And I think clubs and these type of environments foster those types of friendships within our students. And I'm also very thankful, and I don't know if the flex groups are attributing to this, but the disciplinary that's going on, I think is huge. I am glad that I am not meeting with all of you a couple times a week for disciplinary hearings. So I hope this is helping, whether it's fostering new relationships or solely just our staff are seeing, because they're seeing our students on a regular basis, they can pick up on those cues. If a student's having a hard time or there's a rift somewhere in certain friend groups or between certain students, that they're picking up on that and they're coming to you and they're talking about it. And I'm glad to see that. My concern with this was that we were going to see an increase in students roaming the hall in disciplinary incidents. So I'm very happy to see that these things are not happening, and what you had intended for this use is actually what's being done. So yes, I do thank you for that.
Member Gallant?
Yes, thank you. I wish 25 years ago when my 3 sons were in LHS, I wish this was there. I think it would have helped them quite a bit. They're grown men and they're doing great, and I'm very proud of them. But this definitely looks like it's going to help a lot of students on a lot of different levels, not necessarily, different academic levels, as well as, social structures within the high school. So I'm very happy to have this in place. I do have a question on logistics. So if a student wants to meet with a teacher, is this like do they have to book it? Do they have to get like a reservation or an appointment, or how does that work?
Great question. That is the sticky wicket right now. And we do have in the budget a system that will solve this, just making that plug. Scheduling appointments is tricky. So usually what ends up happening is a student shows up in their DA, and their DA teacher might say, have you looked at your grades lately? You probably want to talk to your English teacher. And then they go see their English teacher and they stay there for the period. But we don't have our current student management system, information system. We can't quite sort of track them as much as we'd like to. It hasn't been an issue. Students, people talk about students roaming the halls, and that doesn't happen during DA. It happens during lunches, and sort of last period of the day when people are done, you might find 4 or 5 kids wandering around. But during DA, kids usually say, I need to go see math, and off they go to math, and they're there for the period. Or teachers have said, here's a pass, come see me tomorrow morning. But we are working on a system that'll make it easier so for students to know when a teacher wants to see them, and for the teacher who's responsible for attendance to know where that student is.
Member McLaughlin?
Thanks. Yeah. Everything we've heard so far seems great. I think this makes a lot of sense, but because a lot of what we've heard has been great, I'm curious to hear more about what is not great about it. So if you were here to, pretend you're here to make the argument to us that this is terrible and we need to get rid of it immediately, what would you focus on? Is it
So I think, Member Gallant brought up a point, which is just being really able to know where students are and make the communication, if I need to see you to talk about your history grade, easier. I think that's a piece. I think it's going to take a while to shift the culture of both the staff and the students. I mean, it's nice. We have 2 ninth graders here. They've never known any different, right? You might get a different story out of a junior or a senior. They're like, I don't need that. Right up until they realize they might not graduate unless they get 4 credits, remediated. So I think that it's going to take a little while. There's some things that I'm watching, which is that whole remediation piece. Are we having students, being more successful? And I think that's probably we'll check again at the 3rd quarter. We'll check again at the end of the year, and see how those things are trending. My hunch is this time next year, people would be like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. You can't take it away. And I just think that's how it goes. So I don't see, unless I see students' success going down, I haven't seen any red flags yet, which doesn't quite, but I would say, yeah, the student management piece, knowing where kids are supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing, that's going from 90% to 100%. And that extra 10% can be a huge effort, but we're looking at ways to make that happen. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And I was just going to say, it seems to me the proof really be in those ultimate measures of academic success as well. In addition to all the social pieces to it, but
well, you don't get one you don't get the academic without the social.
Yeah, I shouldn't say in addition, but in conjunction, perhaps. But
Yeah.
Graduation rates at the end of the day, and of course that takes multiple years to really pan out. But I think that'll, that's where we'll really see the success, I think.
That segues to my big question. You want me to wait? You can go first. I don't know what I'm doing. Go ahead.
I was just gonna add on to one of the bad things wasn't mentioned was sometimes students, if they go somewhere for help during the flex time, they get a little neglected, because think about it, it's one teacher trying to help a bunch of different kids that are all in different places. So it's hard to keep up. It's hard to get the attention that you truly need. So I think that's one of the biggest flaws I personally see if I try to go get help. If I go to my Spanish class and I'm like, can you help me with this? Then there could be a bunch of other kids in there that need help with a different assignment. So it's hard just multitask that. There's just a singular teacher with 15 kids in the room, all on different levels.
Especially when the teacher teaches more than one subject. So UA teachers who teach history, but they also teach debate and they also teach this. sometimes there's a lot of kids that they can't really like help you all because you all in different grades, different, classes.
So basically, there's just like neglect that happens, but that's like expected. But it's just harder, like Kaya said, if they teach like history, psychology, debate, like just multiple classes, and there's all those kids in there with different places and different needs.
Thank you. My question, and I don't know if you have this information available or not, is a year ago versus now, seniors who are on track to graduate, are their numbers any different?
They are a little bit different, but I can't really say that has anything to do with flex.
Are they different in a good way or a bad way?
And I think we're going in the right direction. We got the student services department and the truancy folks and all of us have been working extremely hard to get students back in the building, back on track. We've flexed a lot of options, pushed, making better use of Lewiston Academy, making better use of the state of Maine educational disruption diploma. So we're trending in the correct direction. But as much as I'd like to say, yay, Flex did that, it's the hard work of the folks who are literally picking up the phone, dialing all 6 numbers we have, and when they're all disconnected, getting in the car and knocking on the door and saying, we want you to come back to school.
Okay, so the flex isn't really benefiting that much.
I mean, they're seniors, they're disengaged seniors, right? So, or juniors or whatever. So they're not going to be natural. They're not going to this is just one more thing for them as opposed to an opportunity, which these folks, clearly see it as. So I just think it's a different, and why they're in that position can be incredibly varied.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Member Medina?
So first of all, thank you so much for the update. I've been really curious to hear about, how it's going. I have a student myself and her friends, and so I hear things all the time. But I just kind of wanted to touch up on the comment that our student representative said about how sometimes a student will go into a classroom and they're not able to get the help because there are so many students in there. I had an incident where I did reach out to a teacher just to check on my daughter's grade. And they were like, yeah, she's come, but unfortunately, sometimes there's a lot going on. So I haven't always been able to get to her. Or sometimes kids treat it as a social space. So sometimes it's really loud. And for kids that can't focus in that environment, it really is like a barrier, in my opinion. So so I would just really like to see I know you said you're working on it, some sort of system where maybe teachers can schedule with students to make sure that they're, not overbooking themselves and got so much going on. But yeah, that's really my concern. But other than that, I mean, I'm really glad to hear the positive feedback. So thank you.
Member Bowden?
Thanks. So just one more question I'm thinking of while everyone's talking. I know you shared all the graphs from the survey you did with the teachers about how they felt. Do you get an overall feel from teachers that they appreciate and they like this and it hasn't been like a hindrance on them and their planning time? And I'm just curious, like, what's the overall feel with the teachers at the high school on this?
I mean, I'd really encourage, I think everybody walked in skeptical, as they should, thinking it's going to be chaos. And the moment it wasn't chaos on day one, the vast majority said, okay, let's try and make this a success. So what I would think is that at this point in the year, 2/3, 3/4 would be like, yeah, let's keep doing this. Let's get this has got some momentum. The ones that are dead set against it, I'm not sure whether they'd ever be for it, just for whatever reasons that they happen to have. But I think generally speaking, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, it's the 75% of the staff are like, let's keep doing this. Let's try and work out the kinks. This has some value for our students and for us as a teacher, because you could get that one-on-one time.
Member Hurd?
Thank you. So this is actually for both of you. It's 35 minutes.
Mhm.
Do you feel like that is enough or not enough time?
It really just depends on like where I am in that class and like where other kids are because there's all those kids, everyone's at different places. So I normally work pretty quickly. So sometimes that's like perfectly enough time. Like I can do what I need. But then there's like other students that are more behind on work than I am. So they need like extra time. So I feel like it really just like varies on the student and like how they are with their academics. So I feel like it's just all over the place.
I think it is enough time because since we get to use the time 3 times a week, it accumulates. So that 35 minutes, I'm not gonna try to do math here. Past my math time, I'm not trying to do that. But 35, 35, 35, like just doing that 3 times a week each week, I think adds up to enough time for me personally.
Yeah, and I would, I appreciate those comments because I think you always wanted to kind of do the Goldilocks thing. And I'm enough of an economist to say scarcity creates value. So, there's the fact that it's not every day and it's not an hour tends to focus people saying, I actually got to do it right now because it's not, we've all had the day with nothing to do and you get nothing done, right? Versus the day when you got 100 things to do and you've got 20 minutes before your spouse comes home and miraculously, I've cleaned the kitchen, so I just think it has a way of focusing folks' attention and, and there is enough time if you space it out.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? Member Eames?
Since I haven't spoken yet, I feel like maybe I should. I just really appreciate that everything is done within the transportation schedule, that everyone has the opportunity equally. And I think that's key to my support of this, plus everything else you've said.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak?
Thank you. Paul Beauplant, Ward 7, 5 Hilltop Avenue. I'd like to just give the 4 new members of this committee a brief overview of the timeline of this because it's February, we're into the second semester. We're talking about something that should have been viewed in November. Principal Radke, early in the school year, presented his initiative, and he should certainly be credited with the initiative of trying to again increase the grades and attitudes and everything else at Lewiston High School. And as admiral of the ship, there's no way the school committee should strike it down or anything along that line. It's his baby. We were going to review this in November, but the events of October, the tragedy, blew it out of the water. 2 meetings ago, Principal Radke was here. I was here because I still have some concerns and will express them shortly, but it didn't come up. And we both kind of sat on our thumbs looking at each other. So I'm very happy that again, it's brought up today and appreciate it. My initial concern based on my experience as a teacher was the loss of instruction time. There's a joke in social studies that with the short school year, we cover the Truman administration and containment in about 7 minutes, not being able to do it very much justice. And the loss of 6 hours, I feel, does the end justify the means. I have no doubt that students are benefiting from Principal Radke's program, but which ones? And I again, I'm not Norman negative here. I'm a member of the loyal opposition. Let's call it that way. I have no doubt, and I don't want to be elitist on this, but our best and brightest are certainly utilizing this. Anyone that has taught an AP class knows that a student gets a 95 on an exam or a writing paper. They want to know what they can do to get the 97, 98. I'm just wondering if the ones that I thought this program was designed for, the marginal student, the student who has other things in his life that is interfering with his opportunity for success, is utilizing this. And there's no way, I don't know how we can track that without, issues on that, but I'm really concerned. Principal Radke has presented information on truancies. My concern is tardies, excuse me, that the tardies would go off the chart. I haven't had an opportunity to review it, but I'm still concerned that there has to be more increased tardies, excuse me, by students who have not bought into the program. Why come in? And I would also be concerned, and we didn't see any statistics on this, and you were certainly busy enough on all of this. Are there more truancies, more absences for the student that says, well, I'm not going in, I'll stay home? There are a number of things that I think still a concern. The book is still out. I agree with Principal Radke that we would have a better, he would have, and the board would have a better assessment at the end of the year. But does again the end justify the means? Are there more students in the hallway that are passing that don't end up with that teacher? Are there more discipline areas? I mean, I'd like to hear a report from an assistant principal on that. Are the corridors more fuller? So thank you for your time. Thank you for the program, the initiative. As I've said, Principal Radke probably took it from various areas and made it his own, and credit for that. But I have seen examples of this, and those concerns are still not addressed at that other place that I was at before. So thank you again. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Hello, Nicole Pendexter. I'm a teacher at Lewiston Middle School. I'm also the membership chair for LEA, and I'm speaking today for a member that could not be here and did not want their name shared. They wrote, "The school-wide flex is an awesome addition to the schedule at LHS. I have students coming at least once a week, often more, and often more than one student. If I had my way, we would have this flex time every day instead of the DA activities. I believe we bond better when we work together than when we are told to have a certain activity so that we can bond." Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Jay Rich, President of the Lewiston Education Association and multilingual teacher at McMahon. I'll also be reading a statement but from a member who wished to have their name not attached. Lewiston School Committee, I wish to remain anonymous, so I've asked Jay Rich to read this. Many teachers do not see a benefit in AFT time. Students are coming in late to school instead of attending these academic times. There are 3 students in my advisory whom I have not seen since Thanksgiving time who attended all of their other classes but skipped the morning block. I have seen them in the hall and asked where they have been, and they responded that there is no reason for them to come. Personally, I have only had 3 unique times that students have visited a teacher for additional help. We have had roughly 48 all-school flex/activity days with 12 students in 35 minutes, 48 days. That's 20,000 plus minutes of instruction that they have missed. The students who actually do attend are passing all of their classes, so they are sitting here with no work or revision to do. So these 3 unique visits of 105 minutes, and that's if they were working bell to bell with that teacher individually, is being lost to many other students. These minutes just represent my group, not even a fraction of the school population. Another concern is students signing up to go to random all-school flex rooms that do not have the teacher for the class to hang out with other students that they are friends with. If asked to return to their original teachers, we are met with attitude and disrespect. Lastly, students miss DA if they attend LRTC. I have report cards from the first quarter that they were never given out because students have missed that many DA times because of the coordination issues, and they just do not attend in the morning slot. How do these students receive important information about graduation and other school functions? We have been told that they will, but students clearly do not know what is happening. So although the lates to first and fifth block have decreased, they are still late to school and missing these times set aside. I really do not think this time is serving the whole school as planned. Please consider removing for this school year to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to speak? Seeing none. Back to you. Do you have anything else, Principal Radke? No? Okay, then we will move along. Thank you. Agenda item number 11, to receive and discuss remote days during inclement weather.
So I included a memo in the packet, but wanted to have a more open discussion because remote days is something that is an option. Not currently something that we do here in Lewiston, but certainly communities around us do, which has an impact on our days, snow day or non, but also has an impact on staff availability because of the schools go remote. So sometimes staff have to be home with their children from a different district. Part of what I shared with the committee, but also want to share publicly for people who seem unhappy with me sometimes because we don't have a remote day. Instead, we go to school or have a delay. There are some requirements to remote days that currently exist in the state language. One of those requirements is that you need to provide a lunch. And so some of the other districts who have a far smaller amount of need from our students, providing lunch is not that not as complicated as it probably would be here. Some districts are freezing leftovers from school lunch and then disseminating them. So this is why you hear some schools calling for a remote day the day before. They're doing that because they have to send kids home with food and or activities for the next day. Another compounding factor that we have that some other districts may not is access. And so we don't send devices home with all of our kids, pre-K to 12. Actually, I would say pre-K through 8, we don't send devices home. They'll have access to devices at school, but we don't ship them home for lots of reasons, including damage and cost to replace them, appropriate use and what have you. But our high school students don't always bring their devices home, even though they're able to. But then if they do have them at home, do they have access to the internet? And what are we asking adults to do with students on what schedule as an interactive component for a remote day? The alternative to that is to send home packets or some work activity. Those could be prepared in advance, but they don't typically align to wherever the class is at the time, but they could be one-off learning activities. That's a possibility. We would be hedging teachers having those things ready and using a work day to generate them and or receive them back and grade them. I also land concerned as a taxpayer that is an expensive day of staff being paid in full. And what is the return for students as we look at it from an instructional teaching learning perspective. So remote days are feasible, but we need to, at a minimum, separate of other logistics, if the activity is provided, it has to be accessible by all. We need to provide lunch, and that goes home the day before. There's currently a waiver in place. So if we do provide a lunch, we have to fill out a bit of a waiver to send it up because the food's not being served on site. I don't know how long that waiver will be there. It is still in place. It went away for a while and came back. So that's essentially how it's operating. The other challenge we would have from a budgetary perspective, because we are in a reimbursement high poverty district. So when students get a meal, we get reimbursed, and that's how our funding formula is heavily supportive of our nutrition program. Alyssa would say that better than I just did, but I didn't ask her to come tonight, but it's a reimbursement model. When you send food home, it's a different reimbursement expectation, and then you have this waiver piece. You have to wait for an answer. If you get the waiver, then it just changes the funding stream as far as how that works. Again, I haven't heard from any students that are craving packets, and I haven't been able to. Obviously, we don't have everybody having access with devices and or internet. But could learning happen remotely? It could. Could we survey our families to see who needs a lunch and try to figure out a way from our district perspective with capacity to try to figure that out? And the funding, it's possible. One of the concerns that came up around this time last year was that the waiver was going away. And so if you sent food home with students, it had all these criteria. It had to be day before, day of. There was shelf life rules. You couldn't send home like a can of something and call it a meal, weeks in advance, just in case you need it. It had to be in that relevant frame, and it had to meet the nutrition criteria. When the waiver was going to be pulled, you would be taking a financial risk in a district our size of sending, let's say, half our kids. So we were above 2,500 kids or 2,800 kids that said, yeah, I want a lunch. You send that home, and if the waiver either doesn't qualify or you don't end up needing the day because Maine weather doesn't always cooperate, you would eat that cost. So without a waiver, you don't get a recuperation of whatever you sent home. So all these factors, I think, it pointed us in a direction that for our district, it didn't feel right to consider having remote days full on. But I do think there's been enough public question of, hey, why aren't we remote today, to put it on the agenda and have a more open discussion about it.
Member Bowden?
Thank you. So I just want to take everyone back a couple years to COVID, and I don't think anyone screamed louder than I did against remote days, as opposed to in-person days. And I just cannot get on board with remote days. I understand the reasoning why we're having this discussion. We've missed so many days this year, but you just cannot convince me that students will get the same amount of learning at home on a remote day than they would get in classroom with instruction. And there's just so many factors to take in. I mean, you listed them off. How do we make sure everyone has access to the internet? How do we make sure everyone has a device that's charged and working? How do we make sure that everyone gets their food? What we went through during COVID was an absolute logistics nightmare. And I never want to see this district go back to that. And I will fight tooth and nail against it. So I am not in favor, and I really hope the rest of the committee decides not to get on this road, because I take the snow day and we'll make it up. Like, it's not that big of a deal. That's just my opinion.
Just a quick note, it wouldn't just be students that need devices and network, it's also staff. And that's if the weather cooperates, that they have access to power, things like that.
Member McLaughlin?
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, I don't see how this mountain of logistics would be worth climbing to essentially save that makeup day on the end of the school year. I mean, I just, in that type of situation, just a 1-day snow day remote learning situation, I don't think the quality of learning would be very high, frankly. And now, I don't think necessarily the quality of learning in June, whatever, is very high either, typically, but still, I think that's just, I don't think that's a problem worth trying to solve this way, is my current opinion.
Member Eames?
Why are we talking about it? Like, who wanted this and why?
Well, I received a number of communications, and it was also a future item placed on a while back, but I've received a lot of questions, I think, from people, parents, even some students who said, why don't we have a remote day? And I don't think it was, disingenuous or had poor motivations behind it. I think they genuinely wanted to know if Lisbon, Oak Hill, and Auburn have a remote day, how come we can't have one? And I get it, but I just want to make sure that we had a conversation about it and at least try to look at the logistics from our perspective. Yeah.
I'm not objecting to that. I'm just curious, like, what with all this, what would be the argument for it?
Yeah.
And how does Auburn do it because they're pretty big too. Maybe they're not as big. Never mind. Never mind.
Member Medina?
So I feel like remote, I'm up in the air about it, right? Because I know that a lot of, for example, my son's like, well, I don't want to be in school when it's hot. It's hard to focus. We can't get a lot done. But I feel like there's so much, it's not simple, right? And then another thing that comes to mind is what if their parents have to work and then you have siblings watching siblings, and how are they going to navigate that, and make sure that the work is done? So, I mean, I like the idea of it, but I just don't think it's going to work. So that's just my 2 cents.
Member Gallant?
Given that we know the high food insecurity in the Lewiston area, I have a lot of concern about that. In fact, the faith community that I belong to does weekend packs for kids for the weekend to have food over the weekend, because they rely so heavily on the breakfast and the lunches. And so if that alone gives me great concern of a child not eating that day, would be a very good concern to me.
Member Hurd?
Thank you. So Jake, you could have thrown me under the bus. I am the member that asked as a future agenda item. Strictly because in talking about calendar and dissimilar days, I just wanted to make sure that we were also being a good neighbor to our other districts and not putting them in a position, again, I didn't know how it all worked, that we weren't putting them in a position if they were offering remote days and we ended up having, 7 snow days and they had none. Are they then required to go to school longer? And how does that work in our district? Because again, we can't just think about ourselves. We have other people, we have other communities that attend, and it's mostly for LRTC. So how does that work? And again, are we being a good neighbor to the local communities that they want to stay in our little group here, where they are allowing remote days and we are not? I'm not for it at all. My introduction to Lewiston Public Schools was COVID, and remote was awful. I hated every second of it. And I think that kids need to be kids. I know growing up, I got up early and I waited and watched the news to see if we were going to have a snow day. And I was really excited. And I used to put, ice cubes in my toilet and white crayons in the freezer and all the things and hope for a snow day. So I do think that snow days are important and that we should have those things. No one else did that? No one did superstitious things to get snow days? Oh my Lanta. Okay, so anyways, but yes, I am indifferent, I guess. I would say I am more against it than not, as I think our kids should be kids. And they should be able to go outside and have access to that time instead of sitting in front of a computer. But I do thank you for bringing this up and collecting all the information, as I was the one who asked for it to be put on a future agenda item.
To your point though about the regional calendar, which is something we'll dive into at another point, but we are allowed by the state to have up to 5 dissimilar days from the area 5 schools that participate in the technical center. And so if we exceed that, we can face subsidy penalties. Really, the right thing to do is build a calendar where that all fits together neatly. But some of the days that we already have include things like Eid, which we recognize here, but is not recognized in every district. I think it's appropriate that we recognize it here, but that's a dissimilar day. So if we exceed that, we have to apply for a waiver. They may or may not grant it. It's more of an issue further north than it is here. But what we do, at least here, is that the technical center, if we have more days out than say area schools, we do the full amount of days that's required unless the state approves a waiver. And then the technical center is open on those days. So hypothetically, Lisbon could be done school for juniors and seniors, but the technical center is available for them for their learning. And so there's still an obligation that buses would run from Lisbon, things like that. We haven't run into that too much, but if we did, there's still that communication there about how do we patch this to make sure kids have the same learning opportunity because of that calendar dissimilar days conversation.
Kaya?
I never want to do online schooling again. In 6th grade, I was a part of the minority of kids who stayed on Zoom all week. I didn't go into school at all. And I just can't see myself ever wanting to, I just can't do that again. I just really can't. I feel like we just lose out on so much like in-person connections. I miss people so much. Just no. I would come here every single meeting and I would be screaming from the back if I couldn't sit here to not do that again. That's just not happening.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Member Eames?
It is so great to have the students in the room.
Yes. All right. Members of the public have any input on this? Nope.
There you go. I say this is different. Last time I think I spoke, at least the technology. Matt Roy, Ward 3, and former Ward 6 representative to the school committee 2014 to 2017. Mr. Superintendent Wingless, the memo states, well, you kind of brought this up about the waiver. Now, this kind of gets to some of the point some of the members were trying to address, but the state, especially when you consider Auburn's application for their waiver that they put in for the 2 days waiting to all the logistical issues pre-Christmas because of the flooding for 2 days. And they seem to be inconsistent with traditional practice, because we're getting to the point of the year annually where rural districts in the state of Maine, you made the point about up north, but the Levitts, RUCU 16, which is, that's the Poland one, right? Yeah. And then Oak Hill and, even Durham with Freeport and North Pownell. That waiver process is a mainstay of their process each year. Because, well, in West they use a delay of the day of a school day, but and we haven't, and as most of you probably, well, those of you who were here last year and maybe the new members, our application is still pending, correct? We haven't actually submitted that to DOE yet, correct? There.
I'll be careful because I'm not supposed to do Q&A back and forth.
Oh, sorry.
But I think there's some good points that are being brought up here. So one is, yes, we can apply for a waiver for missed school days. Typically, you don't apply too early in the year because your goal would be to make them up. So if you remember our last meeting, you approved to make that exchange day in March a school day. So that is one of the things the district can do to try to get those days in before the end of the year. And I think the state looks for a good faith effort to do that. And I think applying for waivers too early can deflect the effort component of the waiver. So when we request the waiver and Chair Parks will sign off on that when we send it up, because we'll be requesting a waiver, which I have been more or less assured that the days that we missed as part of our return to school after October 25th will be waived. But because winter's still happening, we're trying to wait and see if one, we have other days connected back to October, because that's still a challenge for a lot of people day to day. So there's other components that could be mixed in. So that hasn't flown its way to Augusta just yet.
Well, yeah. Yes, because there's the 3 days in October. And then there's the 4 days right before Christmas. Oh, no, 3 days. I was gonna say Friday wasn't a scheduled day. Now, sitting back there, about the point about the December days, that actually having December cancellation snow days affect that? Because I didn't think so. I see Madam Chair shaking her head, but I was gonna say, back when I was on the board, I don't believe that was a consideration. It's the actual forming the actual school calendar for the school year. So that's not an issue, especially when you well, but so that still leaves the issue. So the 3 days because of the shooting aren't going to factor in, but that still leaves the 3 days pre-Christmas because of the flooding and loss of power and road closure issues, and students and staff be able to come, hence why we canceled for those 3 days. And then the 1 day last month, correct? That we canceled for a full day, correct? And of course, under state law, well, one of the options under state law, which is the state's going to probably be looking at for everything outside that wasn't included because of the shooting. About one of the options is to extend the school day, which, piggybacks, I guess, on back to the high school principal's presentation earlier tonight. And, the member who spoke during, or the citizen who spoke during public comment about the myriad of communications that people send out. And more specifically, the transportation issues with our contract with Wedgmere. If you have, as a board, decided to use that extending the day 1 hour to resolve. How many days did I say now? 4. And and since spring is still 6 weeks and a day away, no matter what the groundhog said last week, or spring might be here in 48 hours or 3 days, but anyway, there is that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other discussion on this? Nope. Did you need guidance or are you good?
I think I'm good. And anything to do with future makeup days or anything like that, certainly would bring before you. I, short of being compelled by the committee, have no interest in bringing you extended days.
I was looking at the agenda and everything from here forward is like procedural and sort of school committee specific stuff. I don't know if we want, I mean, the students are welcome to stay if they want, but there's nothing that's really going to be interesting to you from here on out. So you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to leave if you'd like to go home.
You're welcome to hang if you want to message someone for a ride, and then it's up to you. But thank you so much for all your contributions tonight. Have been exactly what we're looking for, and you did a great job. Thank you.
We definitely appreciate you being here. Agenda item number 12 is to review and potentially vote on procedural rules.
So I didn't have a lot to chime in on this. Karen and I both looked it over, want to make sure we had the most recent rules, and that there was some edits to them. And so if there's any questions, we can certainly take it back. And if not, there's no surprises built in there that I'm aware of.
Member Bowden?
Thanks. I just have one question. In this, it's, I think it's number 3, talks about, it is number 3, that everything shall be distributed to committee members no later than the Friday before the meeting. I thought it was Thursday. And so but it's not like red, like you changed it, but I was always under the impression, and we usually get it on Thursday. So I was just wondering, was that a change, or have we just been?
No, I don't know if it's semantic. So it's still Thursday, and it's no later than Friday. So I always shoot for Thursday, and then sometimes my world just gets spun around. But I always message you if that happens, so you can still expect the same time frame. I think the issue is historically the language was 4 days in advance of a meeting. So like Friday is 4 days, but we always try to do Thursday so that you have it in your inbox. And as you know, that often lands later on Thursdays because of just everything else in the world happening at the same time. So, but no shift there as far as practice, if that makes sense. And if we need to tweak a word, we can still do that and have it approved with the edit.
Any other comments? The only thing that I had seen on an earlier edition was it talked about what we adhere to for guidelines, legal guidelines, and it didn't have the charter in, but I think when I looked most recently, the charter had been added back in. It listed like state law and stuff, but it didn't list the charter. But I think that was the addition that wasn't the accurate one. Okay, I was just gonna double check that. Remember where it was. It was,
so
okay.
it's number 12.
There we go, city charter. Yep, okay. Yep, that was the only thing that I had really picked up on originally. Okay. We don't normally vote on procedural rules, do we, or do we?
I believe that you do.
Okay.
And they're subject to change by the committee
At
at
any
any point in
time.
time. So, but I think it is good for procedurally to adopt them as these are our procedural rules.
Okay. Yep. Oh, did you have a question?
I was just gonna make the motion.
Oh, go ahead. Go. Member Hurt.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the procedural rules.
I'll second. Oh, second. If you want a second, and then I'll ask. Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's fine if it's seconded. I just had one more
seconded
quick
it.
question. In reading number 12 now, did we ever name somebody a parliamentarian?
I think we're gonna do that at the retreat.
Okay, because it states in here that that should have been done as well.
So we haven't always done that. Like, we didn't have a parliamentarian for the last 2 years. You can appoint a parliamentarian, a legislative liaison, but it's not a requirement. That's something that we can do.
Okay. I guess I read that wrong. I guess I read it differently then, because it looks like in the absence of the chair and the vice chair, the school committee will begin its meetings with the parliamentarian. So that kind of seems like something that we should name, and maybe we haven't in the past. I remember Alicia Ray being a parliamentarian. I don't really remember anyone beyond that, but I do think that we should have that in place just because Our procedural rules say we should. Not that I ever think that two of you are going to be out, but that is something that we should
Right.
consider. So
We never used to, until I think 4 years ago, we never even had a vice chair either. We would just, if the chair wasn't available at that meeting, we would start the meeting by voting who among us was going to be chair for that meeting. And
Yep.
that's how it used to be. So I think that the difference is the language of may versus will. So may, we might do that, we might not, but I think we're going to. I think that that's the intention, is to have that at our retreat.
okay.
And Linda had volunteered to be backup.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is correct, there hasn't always been a parliamentarian. And when there was one, at times it got heavier for that person, like in a contentious environment, you can be like this decision maker on process, and then everybody's looking through their books and finding different things in Robert's rules. So there was a time in which that was a harder position to hold. It does leave room for a chair pro tem for the meeting if there isn't a parliamentarian, or if that person is also not available for some reason.
If we have 4 people absent, we'll just go down the line.
Yeah, and I don't think it's bad to have one. I feel like this committee's already shown that they're willing to work together and treat each other well. So I think that's the biggest piece, that when that breaks down, you jump into the book of Robert's rules. That's usually what happens. Sometimes it's procedural when you want to recall things and you just got to double check process.
Member Eames?
I had been we didn't have a legislative liaison for a year, and then last year I was it.
I don't think we had one in
We-
the
we
entire
had-
time I've been on the school
Okay.
committee until Janet was. I think
Oh,
that,
yeah.
I don't think we even
That's
did
true.
that before, that
No,
I
you
can
were it.
remember.
That's
Matt
right.
might think
You were
differently,
it.
but I don't remember having that
No, that's
position
right.
at all.
You were it, and then I was it, and it's like, so we need one for this year.
Yeah. It is in here, yep. Any other discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Agenda item number 13 is to review and potentially vote on school committee subcommittees.
So this is just an update from things that you had mentioned last time. We tried to get some things on a rotational schedule, so you can see that in there. And we just put your names to the subcommittees that you had mentioned last time being interested in. Some of that may have shifted, but just want to put it back in front of you.
Member Gallant?
Will we be notified of the meetings and things like that coming up? And okay, just wanted to make sure that,
Yeah, we'll send email calendar invites. Yep.
Do you get your calendar invites like on your phone or no? You can get it set up. I don't know if Austin could help you with that, but I know that somebody can help you with that. I won't volunteer his services, but you can get it so it auto populates onto the calendar on your phone so that you always know when all the meetings are.
Careful you don't pull a Janet and send an invite
To everyone.
including retirees.
Including retirees. Excellent.
Does anyone have any questions? Member Eames?
I just wanted to say that the committee should be scheduled at a time that you have some say in, like you won't just be told when you're on a committee. We should all negotiate the time that that we can show up. Am I being clear?
Oh, yes.
I just want to respond to what Elizabeth said. We did put some times down here as we looked at trying to spread things out so we weren't all fighting for the same day and time. And some of them do say to be determined, but if the subcommittee says, no, that time is not going to work for us, then we will change the time. And my hope is that it's not sporadic. Last year, we were trying to plug meetings in, and sometimes we had to change it 2 or 3 times. So the idea of putting it the second Thursday of the month from whatever to whatever will allow us to send out those invites for the year. And then if we need to make adjustments, we can certainly do that. And as we meet, and if we need to adjust or add to the to be determined, then we'll do that and put those on the calendar as well.
Member Medina. Oh, you're good now. Member Bowden.
I'm just wondering what the potential vote on this would be. Like, we've all kind of picked what we want. I don't really have a say in what Member Gallant wants to be on, right? So like, what is the potential vote? I guess I'm confused.
I was thinking more procedurally, just that it's been approved, so that's that's the direction we're headed. Yeah. That's it.
All right. Has everybody's had a chance to look at this and it seems accurate for what you wanted to do? Yeah, okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Does somebody want to make a motion to accept?
Sure. I'll make a motion to accept the subcommittees as listed. That's the right way
I'll
to say
second
it.
that. Seconded by Member Medina. All in favor? It is unanimous. Agenda item number 14, to receive the FOAA video training.
So we shared some items in the packet. There's a frequently asked questions that you're required to look over. There's other components we mentioned, a prior retreat. I know that member Eames has already completed this and signed on. So we just want to make sure everyone's done this, and you have a period of time to do this once you've been elected and sworn in. But given the various climates that we experienced last fall, thought it'd be good to try to do this. I was under the impression for some reason that we had a 30-day window, so I put this on today's agenda. And I think it was Karen that said you have more than 30 days, so it didn't have to be tonight, but it was there, so I figured we could just do it anyway. There's a short video that goes along with it that's produced by MSBA. It's not required that you do the video, but I thought it'd be a good option. I have HDMI direct.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
Okay. You might want to leave the meeting just so it doesn't start playing the meeting audio.
Yeah, we have to do it every,
Every
yeah.
cycle. That's for any pro.
You're gonna need another one. I'm gonna break this one.
On purpose?
No, it's so full of information.
Oh.
There's so much stuff that goes in.
This laptop. And this isn't gonna be streamed out to the public. It's just.
Yeah.
in this room.
That's fine. Just as a note, this won't be streamed to the public. So if you're watching online, it's about 4 minutes long. And the reason I didn't do that is I didn't have permission from MSBA to do that. So we'll show it here. If someone really wants it, they can look on the Maine School Board Association website to see if they can watch it on their own.
Sound plays.
Welcome to Freedom of Access. Where would that be covered?
So actually, if you click on your little settings thing right here. Go to sound.
So if you could, please make sure you review the frequently asked questions. On Thursday, when we meet as a retreat, we will have your forms available to sign. And if you have any questions at that point, please let us know. Chair Parks did mention to me during the video that to check on the number of people that can meet at any one time when you're not having a full quorum meeting. And I think, but I will double check on this, that in part that is about what you're meeting to do school business versus meeting outside of school business to discuss school business. So we'll verify that because we have some subcommittees that have 4 people on them because you can't have 5. That makes a quorum, but we want to make sure it's okay to have 4 instead of 3, as stated in that video. Because this is a larger body, it may be permissible. But we'll check.
Any questions? Member Eames?
I'm so sorry. There was something about all subcommittees being public as well,
Except negotiations.
except negotiations. So that's probably why that's not collusion. That's a meeting and that's fine.
Right, and public could come to observe any subcommittee.
Okay, agenda item number 15 is to discuss the retreat on February 8th at 5:30 at Dingley.
Like to have a retreat 5:30. We did. I did message out to everyone. I believe everyone is available. If that's good. I know we've tried several dates, but there's been some important things that people need to miss. So or to be at. So just as a quick reminder, we'll be at Dingley. We'll use the room upstairs. Retreats are open to the public if people wish to attend. Attendance is usually pretty light, if at all. We're just going to review, again, more policy, not making decisions on them, but just review of things and a handful of sign-off components that are connected to you being a member of a school committee.
Any questions? Okay. Agenda item number 16 is a report from the school committee chair, and I do not have anything to report on this evening, so we'll skip to the superintendent's report.
I just wanted to mention that we're looking at using some space at Longley for additional recovery efforts. These would be after school hours, but I wanted to say it out loud as an update, just so you're fully aware. Some of the students who are close to returning to school, who currently can't be on school grounds, we're building into their reentry plans that they can start to access pieces. And so some of these students who are currently expelled, who are on a track for return, may be in those spaces, again, off school hours. And so just wanted to put that in your ear. The prior committee made some exceptions to that as long as we had a plan for reentry and that was being followed. But I didn't want to proceed with that without at least sharing that out loud, so you're aware. I think that was the biggest thing on my update list for now. And I know we have some executive sessions this evening that fill you in on some other things.
Report from our city council rep.
Thank you. We have a meeting tomorrow. A few items that might be of interest here. We have a workshop, so we won't be taking any action on it, but we're having a presentation from the recreation director on a draft policy for recreation scholarships. They get a lot of requests for various scholarships for rec programs, and they're just looking to implement a standard policy to work on those. It's also the first public hearing for the capital improvement plan, which has some school-related items on it. Just the public hearing, we won't really be taking any action on, if we're going to make any adjustments or anything. And then we also have we're discussing allocating some funds for a winter warming center. And the city of Auburn is discussing that tonight at their city council meeting. And we'll be discussing it tomorrow, and I hope that it passes. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any updates on subcommittees? Has anyone met in the last? No.
Oh, subcommittee?
Yes.
Negotiations.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, negotiations met.
member Charpentier, did I say that right? Okay, Charpentier. And member Scott did attend and
Member Harriman.
oh, yes, sorry, Harriman.
I was like,
I'm sorry. I have to get used to this, guys. It used to be member Scott down there, and now it's Scott Harriman. So yeah, we did have a negotiations on Wednesday and we were able to get through quite a bit, but there's still quite a bit more to do. We meet again on Valentine's Day. Yeah. Are we meeting this Wednesday? Yeah, this Wednesday and then on Valentine's Day. Yeah, we're really piling them in. We're trying to get this done before budget season. So, yep, we're still on track. Everything looks good. Perfect. That's all I have.
I don't think any other subcommittees have met, have they? Nope. No. Okay. Any community announcements? Member Hurd.
Thank you. McMahon Elementary is bringing back their Tiger Run this year. It's going to be April 27th. We actually have a meeting on Thursday before our retreat. I told them I cannot say I'm not available for another day. Or the committee is going to seriously injure me. But so registration will be going out hopefully after our meeting on Thursday for that. And we are also offering after the 5K a kids run to follow at 9 o'clock. So we'll have lawn games and food and all kinds of fun stuff. So more information on that to come as soon as we get like a flyer and stuff. I'll send it out for everybody to share.
Any other community announcements? Member Bowden?
Well, actually, Jake actually sent this out to everyone, but there was a fundraiser for a student at McMahon, a sixth grader named Evan Grenier. Did I say that right? I bought one of the t-shirts. I'm excited. I hope the rest of the committee will buy a t-shirt. Maybe we can plan a night where y'all wear them in support of him. There was a cool little take on Avengers. I don't know. I thought it was neat. And so, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. And I know there was something, I don't know if you want to speak something about a dinner for the Italy trip. Is that what you wanted to speak on? Okay. Yeah. At Governor's Restaurant. Actually, Matt Agron is in the audience and I don't know if it's appropriate if he can stand up and tell us about that, right? Okay. If that's okay, it's a community announcement.
Yeah, I don't think you mentioned why they're doing the fundraiser for the young man that he has.
I'm sorry. He was diagnosed with brain cancer, and he's undergoing treatment in Boston. So there is a fundraiser for him. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm kind of jumping all around, but I knew there was also a fundraiser night at Governor. So if Matt wouldn't mind coming up to speak on that for us.
At this time. Yes, we're doing a fundraiser for the LRTC program. February 27th from 4 o'clock to close. 10% of our sales will go directly to them for their trip. We hope to see you all there. Any questions?
Thank you. Any other community announcements? Nope. Yep.
Went to a grand opening, if you will, today at Kraus House Coffee. That is actually a teacher and her husband, and they're making roasted coffee right here in Lewiston. First ones to do that. Got a chance to check that out, which is pretty neat. So it's a good venue for kids to be able to check out too. Maybe some trips involved, but a unique portion. And I think I was asked to attend one because Vicky's a high school teacher, but also her husband works at the Root Cellar, and part of what they're doing is that a percentage of all of their sales will be given back to youth development directly. And so that's a good thing for our community. Plus, it's a privately owned small business, so we'll do our best to support it. He did a demonstration today, and before he started, I said, "I'm going to buy a 5-pound bag of your Sumatra." And he didn't have any yet. So he did this demo and he made me a 5-pound bag of Sumatra. So if anybody wants a cup of coffee,
wow,
I've got grides. So it's a pretty neat thing. We just want to share it. It's something people could look up. Oh, it's on Landry Road, which is off of 202 going on towards Martin's. between the bank and Irving. There's a little left-hand turn by the bread place, across from Paris Farmers Union. Yeah, if you go in there, they have things for sale and available. I had 2 cups of coffee right before this meeting. And I don't want to be here all night, but I could be.
Anything else? Agenda item number 21 is future agenda items. Member Medina?
Earlier, one of the committee members mentioned about the excessive phone calls, which 40 some and 100 and some, I don't know. Member Heard mentioned. Member Heard mentioned maybe it's like in like the wrong, I don't know how it's set up, the system's set up, but I also have heard from other parents that they were getting a bunch of phone calls, they were getting frustrated. Don't worry, Jake, I had you back, you know, told him he's trying his best. But if that did happen, I don't know if there's just something in the system where she's listed, I don't know, but I just thought it'd be, maybe if we can even just understand how that works, that I think that'd be cool.
We can do that.
Member Glant?
I'd like to look into the possibility, no matter how remote, on the possibility of Lewiston having its own school buses and own bus drivers. We know that there are grants out there for that, so I would just like to have that as a discussion.
Somebody else, Member Heard?
Thank you. I had mentioned before, and I'm thinking about it now, as LRTC has come up for their Skills USA. If Director Callahan could come and present about how students get into LRTC, are there requirements? Because I had mentioned maybe some of our students academically may not be at the top of their class, but LRTC could be something that they really excel in. And I hope we're not hindering any of our students by any means if they have to reach a certain academic goal. So just more of informational of how that program works and who gets accepted, and if students drop out, can other students join, and how that all works.
Member Harriman, Counselor Harriman?
Thank you. I just wanted to second Member Gallant's question about the buses. I know the capital costs would be very high, but I'd be interested in seeing the financial breakdown of how that would work ongoing.
Member Bowden?
Thank you. So we also had a public comment tonight about the high school library and ed tech. So I mean, budget season's coming. It's something we're going to discuss, but I do think it's worth a discussion. I mean, she did take the time to come speak to us, and you know, if there's an issue, we should be looking into it. And I also just wanted to I mean, Principal Radke was here tonight, and I had asked for a future agenda item last time, which is something that he would need to speak on about midterms and how those went. Midterms and we have finals coming up. Like, this is all stuff I would love to hear about. I'd love to hear about how that's going, how it's been implemented. Do we have some consistency? So I'm just going to bring that up again because it didn't get talked about tonight. And yeah. That's all I have.
Any other future agenda items? Nope. Agenda item number 22 is to enter into executive session to discuss negotiations in accordance with 1 MRSA 405D.
So moved.
All in favor? School committee is in